Welcome to Amberger's Smackdown at todaysfinancialnews.com. I'm Christoph Amberger. I often wonder what financial analysts do all day, not those hard-working modelers and numbers crunchers who work for investment banks, manage accounts and portfolios, and don't see their families except for a few hours on Saturdays, but those guys who end up being pulled by organizations like Bloomberg.com or Reuters to create news before the actual news come out. The analyst estimates that invariably precede the actual release of official economic data, earnings reports, retail sales, economic growth. I assume they surf the web all day, read the reports other analysts post, upload, publish, typing their fingers down to the knuckles in their cubicles or corner offices. They put in long hours, arriving early, leaving late, so they eventually can make vice president or, even better, director of this, that, or the other thing. Once a month, a reporter calls and glamour touches the cubicle. Maybe those analysts polled on U.S. economic growth would do well to sleep in on a weekday morning or leave early, see the traffic on the highways inching in and out of U.S. cities, a mall or shopping center on a weekday afternoon, a suburban core teeming with costly children and even more costly, perennially redecorating stay-at-home moms, a downtown street overrun with people at lunchtime, people working, shopping, spending money, paying their mortgages even as there are for sale signs in front yards 3, 6, and 9 houses down. Maybe if they got out once in a little while and got a little touch of real life every now and then, they'd not be as eager to furrow their brow and talk about recession with such ease and frequency. Financial reporters announced the other day that economic growth in the U.S. unexpectedly accelerated in the third quarter, as exports, consumer spending, and business investment more than made up for a 20.1% drop in home building. That decline subtracted a whole percentage point from U.S. economic growth. U.S. GDP grew at an annual rate of 3.9%, according to the Commerce Department. 3.9%. Following the 3.8% growth rate for the second quarter, the U.S. economy has posted its strongest quarterly growth in 4 years. To think they're popping champagne corks in Germany and the EU for economic miracles, creating 2% growth and change after a decade and a half of stagnation. At the same time, the Federal Reserve cut the benchmark lending rate by a quarter point to 4.5%. Employers added 106,000 jobs in October, also more than economists had forecast. They don't see the help wanted signs in shop windows. Employment costs rose in the third quarter at a slower pace than in the previous 3 months, suggesting increases in wages and benefits aren't heating up inflation. Consumer spending grew at a 3% clip, following a 1.4% increase in Q2, again contributing the most to the gain in GDP growth. After-tax inflation-adjusted income is 4.1% ahead of last year for a $344 billion gain. Housing costs are dropping and loan costs are plummeting. There's one thing I have noticed about Americans in my almost 20 years in this hospitable country. The better life is, the stronger the economy, the louder they complain and the gloomier they get. It doesn't keep them from spending or working, mind you, which sets them apart from Central Europeans of the younger generation. But listening to Democratic presidential candidates, you'd think the main employment of U.S. citizens involves selling number 2 pencils at street corners. When it comes to whining, analysts and Democrats may be the most American of them all. We might do well to just ignore them every now and then. For TFN HotStock Pick, I'm Christoph Amberger.